We're looking at the arguments from God in book 2, right? So these arguments for God now, we're looking from the science standpoint. We're talking about the origin of man. So we're getting into now this idea of how information can only come from the mind. Okay, so here we go. We always do this kind of thing, right? We start out looking at the pyramid, find out where we're at. So today, we're looking still at this one layer of the pyramid, the origin of man, and today we're going to look at information machines, okay? What does that mean? We're going to get into, these are lessons in the book. Lesson 6.1 is the beginning of this argument for DNA as showing God's omnipotence. We're going to get into information theory and machines. We're going to look at videos along the way. I think you'll like these a lot. This is one of my favorite topics because honestly, anytime you're in a debate when you talk about biochemistry and the human body, there is no answer out there from a naturalist. There just isn't. All there is fluff and storytelling. There just isn't anything there. Okay, the arguments we've been talking about. We already did the origin of the universe. We went through that in an earlier class. We talked about how the universe is designed. We got into fine-tuning the variability. We already talked about irreducible complex systems. Here we go into information. Then we're going to get into the non-material side. Look at the human soul. We're going to talk about existential causality. And then we already talked about the animal kingdom. Okay? So when you think about in class, all right, so here we're in information machines. So you think about all the lessons, right? We got 39 little lessons. We're in the yellow part because we've done book 1 already. We're in book 2. And we're right here. Okay? So if you think about the whole class, we're halfway through. Right? There's a lot. I mean, I don't know what to tell you guys. Christianity has so much available that should excite people that I don't want to cheat you. I want to make sure we're going through all this. Okay. But everything we do, there's only one thing that matters. All of it, you're not going to, so what? You have great evidence, you feel good about yourself, right? The key is what we call the gospel. We had 4 lessons where we went in depth on what the gospel is. We have to understand those essential things that every Christian needs to know, because in your mind, when you're talking to people, God is not going to say, isn't this awesome? Listen to Ed argue for the origin of the universe. This is fantastic. He wants me to allow his son to work through me to bring that person to Jesus Christ. That's what he wants. This works in American culture. This is why we're teaching it in this class. If I try this in Pakistan, let's get into irreducible complexity, see if that matters to you. Yeah, most of the people that are Christian over there are going to look at me and go, well, actually, Jesus spoke to me in a dream last night. That's why I became a Christian, because he came physically to me, revealed himself. I feel like I know him now. I repented for my sins, and I gave my life to Christ. I'll look at him and say, well, that's wrong. No, you need to understand irreducible complexity, right? Now, God does whatever he wants. But in America, guess what's happening? The education system is saying, you people in church, you're kind of brainless, and, you go to church for emotions and everything. Come over here to the university, and we'll teach you what life's all about. And what they're teaching, actually, is they're taking truth and they're perverting it. So to share the gospel, part of what we have to do is understand their ploys and deconstruct what they're saying, because they're wrong. Most of what they're saying actually points to God, not to secularism. So the gospel never changes, but the method does. Where you're applying the gospel. You have to, when Jesus said he wants you to be smart as what? Serpents, harmless as doves. So he doesn't want you to be as smart as doves and harmless as serpents. And a lot of Christians are as harmless as serpents. We judge, we beat somebody up, we don't want to be, if this person is a sinner, they do some terrible cultural things, I don't want them coming near me, I don't want to know them. Right?
Well,
and
there's an argument in Corinthians that says that some we're supposed to stay away from. So.
Right. We're smart, yeah, but all right, so let's talk about that for a minute. Why were the Pharisees so upset with Jesus Christ?
Speaking truth to power.
Speaking truth, they were felt threatened. What else?
He said he was God.
Said he was God. What else? What was the big thing that drove him crazy? How is their power threatened?
People.
What do you mean?
Control the people. It opens their minds to the truth.
And what kind of people were following Jesus?
They're so unbidden by truth.
What kind of people were following Jesus?
Blue collar.
Huh?
What's a blue collar?
Sinners. Sinners. No, oh really? Okay. Church people didn't want to hang out with Jesus.
No.
Very few. You have just a few examples. The main people in the stories are either prostitutes or tax collectors, right? Or guys hanging on crosses, even. So they're going crazy. They're saying, wait a minute, this guy hangs out with sinners. He must be a sinner, right? So the model Jesus Christ gives us is what? What's the model?
Hang out with sinners.
Hang out with sinners. So what do? Hang out with church people, right? And argue with people on Facebook, you know? When God's saying, no, I want you to be friends with people who don't know me yet. I don't want you to live like them. I want you to love them. And we sit in church and go, yeah, that's a good idea, but you know what? I want to hang out with people that think like me. You know, that's what we do. Christianity in America is hard. It's hard because you have to be willing to do what the master tells you. And what he tells us to do does not work for me. That's not how I want to be.
But much of that is a learned thing from our parents. I mean, many of us younger, when we were younger, were told stay away from those kids because our parents were afraid of their influence on us. Not at home. So at home, basically what was happening was the training wasn't going into the kids from home, but they were trying to keep us away from the influence.
Right.
So we try to fight that
Right.
as we get older.
So think about, he's right, but think about what's going on in our culture right now. You know why people do terrible things? It's the way they were raised. I can't help myself, you know? This is the house I grew up in, or these are the things I do. How does that work?
Well, I'm not justifying
No, I know you're not. I'm just saying. How does that work in a court of law?
Victim mentality.
How does that work?
it. Doesn't work.
Doesn't work. How do you think it's going to work to stand before God one day and say, you know why I didn't share too much, or you know why I wasn't that involved in people knowing you? Yeah, look at the house I was raised in, and look at the environment, right? Now, God's not going to send you to hell if you love Jesus Christ, but what he's going to do, he's going to look at you and he's going to go, really? So you're kind of like that servant who I gave 1 talent to, and you buried it in the ground. Why do we have no excuses when it comes to our willingness to share Christ? Why are there no excuses? Why do you think that is?
Because we all have a testimony that we can share.
We have a testimony. What else?
He told us to do that exactly.
Because he told us to do it. I'll give you the best reason. Because he lives in us. It's not... What happens is so often we look at our Christian worldview as something we're supposed to do. And it's not. We're not supposed to do anything. There's nothing a Christian is supposed to do. We're just constantly taught that way. John chapter 15. I'm the vine, you're the what? What does a branch do?
Abides.
Nothing. Just hangs out. That's all a branch does. Right. Jesus says, without me you can do nothing. All you got to do is let him do it. Say, Lord, who around me right now do you think I should talk to? Father, do you see an opportunity for me? What should I do today? Lord, show me. Help me understand where I'm at with you today. Or, Lord, I need you. You know, he's in us. He's not over here like Allah. And I got to figure out, if I do what he says, is he going to like me and I can get to heaven?
Say, but he also said, many will say to me, or not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but
Right.
only one who does my Father's will.
Right. So how does that work with what I just said? how does the context of him saying that he directs us, I may have just given you the clue, he directs us, and because he's directing us, expects us to do what he says. How does that work?
Because if he doesn't, so it's in 1 Corinthians, I don't remember what chapter, but he talks about faith, hope, love. You got to have all three, but love being the most important one. God is love, and then that's going to be what directs you.
Yeah.
If he's not in you, then you're not doing love, then he's in you.
This is all good stuff. This is what we're doing. We're moving from a naturalistic worldview into this idea of an immaterial worldview, right? You have a son. I have 3 boys and a daughter. Now, most of them are older now. I got one left in the house. How would my sons and my daughter live now that they're away from me in a way that would please me? What do you think I was doing while I was raising them?
Teaching.
I'm trying to put into them everything I can. And what am I hoping?
That they listened.
That it sticks. Exactly. So I put into him or her, and what do I want my values to be theirs? It's the same with thieves or the mafia. They don't sit there and go, I steal and rob and everything, but I'd like to teach you differently because I want you to not be like me. They would probably actually think my son's awesome because he's just like me. So whether you're good or bad, your values are what you're transferring, right? What do you think God does? When he says, not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father who's in heaven. He says that because he said that in this world you'll have tribulation, but I've overcome the world. Greater is he who is in you than he who is in the world. So when the Lord's living in your life, it's not like he's watching the NCAA tournament and not paying attention to you. He's in you, and he's kind of like, just kind of like robotically getting you to do what he wants. So if he's off target because he's busy in the Middle East with a problem, you can do what you want. He literally, we've been studying Psalm 139, he minds me, sifts me, and literally designs me so that I can do what he says. Not like an animal, because of my conscience and my value system. So it's just like your kids. If they start growing up and they do something against the parents' wishes, up to a certain age, you have some power, don't you? What happens though when that age, there's a bridge there, right? That child is now 21. Do you lock him in his room and because he's not obeying you and until he says he's gonna, or what do you do?
Those are consequences.
Why do you do that? Why don't you keep him locked in his room if he has his penchant for stealing, let's say?
State won't let you.
State will let you. That's a great answer, actually. But if you could, why won't you just keep him locked in his room so he stops stealing?
Because it's not stopping the problem.
Okay.
Change his heart.
Okay. So you're saying as a parent, I gotta let him out, and I know he's gonna keep stealing, but that's how he's made. You know why we let him out? Because we love them. Because we love them. You've done everything you can. You look at them and tell them, I love you enough to let you live your own life. This isn't North Korea. You're not a machine. You're not a dog. You're not my property, right? You're my son. This is Luke chapter 16, or this is the son, right? The prodigal son. You say to him, I will always be here for you. I will never leave you. But I love you so much, I'm going to allow you to make decisions you want. People don't understand what God's love looks like. God's love is not controlling. This is why he says, Matthew 7:21, not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, because there's a point a person makes decisions. So he warns us and says, there's nothing you can do that I can't forgive. Nothing. It doesn't matter what you've done. I'll forgive you. But if you don't want my forgiveness, love demands that I let you suffer those consequences. Otherwise, you're not my son. Does this make sense?
You don't have free will if you hold somebody in a room.
Right.
You can't make somebody love you. You can't love somebody that tries to make you love them.
Right. So you're watching it play out in our country right now, this whole idea of free speech being violated on college campuses, right? This is what's happening. We are sacrificing the dignity of an individual that was given to us in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution as an inalienable right that government can never touch because it comes from God. We are watching our country try to tell us that they know better, the government knows better on how we should live than we do. And so let us tell you, they are saying they're taking away our freedom as a unique creation of God. And they don't use those words though. So most Christians who aren't reading their Bibles and don't understand, don't know what's going on. Why it's attractive is because we get free stuff.
Somebody.
You can get stuff off of welfare, you can get free health care, you can get all these things, but you gotta give up your freedom. This is what's happening if we're not aware of what's going on. Does this make sense? This is why what we're studying in this class is so applicable. It helps you as you're talking to people in the world. So right now, studying book 2, we're still making sure we're grounded in the fact there is a God. Okay, we've talked about this. Here's all the little building blocks we went through. This is just quick review. We went through, on the origin of the universe, all these individual lessons that go through how we know the universe came into existence. Then we looked at design. We went through mathematics, planetary motion, all these things that show that the universe is basically runs on a set of equations, which is impossible in a natural world, in a naturalistic worldview. Then we looked last week and the week before that, animals, how they're designed in this thing called irreducible complexity. And the point is, the more evidence I learn that I'm created, or that the universe is created, that the universe is designed, and that living systems are designed, the more this adds up, the more passionate you should get to know who is it that did all this. And who it is explained to us. It's that Jew hanging on the cross. We're back to this guy. It's Jesus Christ. He says so over and over again in the Bible. And our culture will hit you this way. Really? Bronze Age Palestine? Some Jew hanging on a cross and you're going to give your life to him? What are they doing when they do something like that? They're telling a twisted, perverted truth. Why would God show up as a carpenter? It's a good question. Why wouldn't he show up as a reigning king or, some big shot or something? Why would he do that?
Because it's just one of us.
He's humbling
We're one
himself.
of him.
To be
Huh?
servant. He's humbling himself.
But yeah, and I'm with you. You guys are all right. So think of God. He's up there in the universe, kind of like apart from us, we can't see him. And he says, "Man, I think the only way people will be attracted to me is if I become really humble, and I'm willing to give my life for their sake. I think that will resonate with people." Is that what he did?
Our eyes can only be opened whenever we put someone else first besides ourselves.
And isn't that interesting? So you know what he just said? If we're made in the image of God, and we actually are attracted more to humility in people, aren't we? Isn't it something? Guess what that means, what God is like in his essence? He's not a dictator in North Korea. He is humble. In his essence, as a person, he cares more about me than himself. You ever think about that? The creator of the universe with all this power, who just said it and the whole thing came into existence, actually cares more about you than himself. I can't understand it. It's beyond me. How does he do that? How does he look down and say, there's not a person alive that I don't care more about than me? That's what Jesus said. Let this mind be in you that was also in Christ Jesus, who being the form of God did not consider it robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation. Right? So he literally says, for your sake, so that I can reconcile myself to you, I'm just going to act the way I am. I didn't have to change anything about me. That's who I am.
Wow.
It's crazy. You're not seeing that right now in politics in our country. People are picking sides not because they love each other, but because they swear they're right. What's most important is that I'm right.
Yeah,
You know,
not
and I'm going
true.
to fight to get it so people listen to me.
Not truth.
Yeah. Jesus didn't do that. Matter of fact, most of the time he's walking around, people are spitting on him, they're hitting him, they're laughing at him, and he's going, okay, all right. Then some little fat Jewish guy in a tree, who everybody hates, tax collector, he goes, hey, I'm not dealing with this guy. It's like, what's wrong with you? What are you doing? Right? He's just different. Okay. DNA. Here's our fifth argument. Specified information infers an intelligent design. Not just information, specific information. We'll look at that in a minute. There is specified information in DNA of living organisms. Therefore, there must be an intelligent designer. Remember, when you do premises, you start with the first one, and you have to ground each one and see if you agree. Specified information, a book. All right? Information could be a pattern of signals, and you could say, okay, that pattern of signals, but that doesn't infer intelligent design, because you can have an alarm clock go off and just go boop, 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 or you could have a leaf fluttering in the wind that makes a noise as it hits the branch. That doesn't mean somebody's trying to tell you something. But when it's specified, something like this, then there's someone behind this, but you can't see him. You can't see that I wrote this, right? You just have a book. When I'm reading a Julius Caesar by Hamlet, right, or by Shakespeare, Shakespeare's not sitting next to me saying, hey, let me explain to you what this means, right? The author, the designer, is implied in the information. Make sense? So, is there any wisdom literature out there that tells me it was God who specifically designed everything about me before I was born? All right? Any wisdom literature, we talked about this before, whether it's the Babylonians, the Assyrians, whether it's Greek, whether it's Romans, is there anything out there that says we know where the specified information in you that tells how you were made, where it came from? And there's only one source that does that. You're only going to find in our Bible the description of why you are brown-eyed, or you're left-handed, or you could get breast cancer, or you kick with the left foot. It's all in an information system. All right, there's something called, now, as I go through this, remember what I told you, these are all in your book. You're doing yourself a major disservice, bless you, if you're not reading the book. It goes into more detail to explain it. Von Neumann machines are included in lesson 6.4, and it explains what it is. This is coming from A.E. Wilder-Smith. He's a triple PhD. He's passed away a little while ago. I had an opportunity to go and listen to him in a lecture once, and he goes through this. And so I'm going to run through this with you so you can think about how it works. How would you define a machine? What's a machine? What would you say?
Something that does work.
Something that does work. I'm telling you right now, people aren't reading the book. It's okay. You really need to read the book. Here's a definition. Thought expressed in matter for a purpose. You won't find a machine that didn't require someone to think about what they wanted that machine to do. Behind every machine is someone, whether it's a paper clip, a book, carpeting, a VHS player, someone who thought about a function and expressed it physically. We're a machine. We are. We just went through, remember our senses? We talked about the optic nerve, the olfactory nerve, we talked about the taste buds, all the way information is processed from the external world to our brain so that we can do things. Okay. Von Neumann machines. The first one is called machina simplex, or a simple machine. It's matter plus energy plus time plus information. It's a blueprint. So all machines require information to create them. We can't have something function unless something was put in to get the function we wanted. Now, if the machine can replicate itself, it's going to have a simple plus more information. You need greater levels of information for a machine to be able to automatically assemble itself. There's no way I can take all the parts, lay them out, and the machine will assemble itself. And there's no way it can do it more than once. So far, so good? You have something called self-diagnosing machines. These are ones that can replicate, plus they can actually diagnose a problem during assembly and fix it. Anybody think of an example of something like this?
Our immune system.
You ever walk up to a Xerox machine at work and it's got a flashing message, jam in paper area 2, remove jam pieces of paper? All right, how does it know to do that?
Switches on the gear stands jam.
Somebody had to put information into the software that when something happens in the machine where it stops, it then produces a message. It diagnoses itself. Self-repairing. Machines that can not only diagnose themselves, but can actually repair themselves from the diagnosis. Now, with most printers, when they jam, can they fix themselves? So can you name a machine that's capable of repairing itself?
Our immune system.
Mars rover?
Huh?
Our body.
Us. It's insane, guys. It's insane. So what we have here is we have von Neumann machines never originate from natural law. You can't get from just material a machine that's capable of replicating, diagnosing, and repairing, unless immaterial information is added to it. There is no example except a person. Let's watch this video.
Hubert Yockey said in his book, 1992 by Cambridge University Press, Information Theory and Molecular Biology on page 284, the belief that life on Earth arose spontaneously from non-living matter is simply a matter of faith in the strict reductionism and is based entirely on ideology, not on science. And Hubert Yockey is not a Christian, he is not a creationist, he says he's an agnostic in his writings. The definition of reductionism is the attempt to explain all biological processes by the same explanation as physical laws that chemists and physicists use to interpret inanimate matter. In other words, Sir Frederick Hoyle in Nature, volume 294, said this. He said the likelihood of the formation of life from inanimate matter is 1 to a number with 40,000 noughts, that is, zeros in British after it. It is enough to bury Darwin and the whole theory of evolution. If the beginnings of life were not random, they must therefore have been the product of purposeful intelligence. But you know Fred Hoyle, you know what he went on to say? Instead of appealing to God, he said that aliens created life on Earth. That's what he said. Well, my question is, okay, if we were made by aliens, well, who made them? Well, they were made by a previous population of aliens. Okay, well, who made them? Well, they were sprinkled and made by a previous population of aliens. So you have this infinite regression backwards of aliens flying around the universe creating life. But the problem is the universe isn't infinitely old. We know the universe had a beginning, had a finite history in the past. So the question is, where did the first source of information come from? According to the principles of information science, it only comes from the mind. George Wald, a Harvard University biologist and Nobel laureate, said this: "One has only to contemplate the magnitude of this task, that is spontaneous generation, to conceive that spontaneous generation of a living organism is impossible. Yet, we are here as a result, I believe, of spontaneous generation." So he says it's impossible, but I believe it happened. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the definition of faith right there. The belief in things unseen and hoped for. And Francis Crick, the discoverer of the structure of DNA, said this in his book Life Itself, page 88. "An honest man, armed with all the knowledge available to us now, could only state that in some sense the origin of life appears at the moment to be almost a miracle. So many are the conditions which would have had to have been satisfied to get it going." I did this presentation at this university, and in the back of the room there were two very agitated professors, because I was pitting the information science department and the chemistry department against the biologists, showing that information-packed, self-reproducing machines and molecules do not arise by chance, according to those other departments. And this gentleman stood up and he said, "We are scientists. Unless we can see it, touch it, taste it, smell it, hear it, or detect it with our scientific instrumentation, we cannot believe it exists, and therefore I cannot believe that this God of yours exists." Folks, when you hear that kind of an argument, you should love it. According to the philosopher Alvin Plantinga, he's a Christian philosopher at Notre Dame University, proving the existence of God is like proving the existence of someone else's mind. Proving the existence of God is like proving the existence of someone else's mind. The thing about the mind is I cannot see it, taste it, touch it, smell it, hear it, or detect it with scientific machinery. It's not detectable. Your mind is non-physical. If I attach an EEG to your head and I measure your brain waves, I'm not measuring your mind. I'm measuring the flow of sodium and potassium ions across the cell membrane, which produces an electric current. Your mind is non-physical, just like God. Non-physical, non-detectable. And yet we know that the mind exists. There are many things that are non-physical that exist. Information is a thing that's non-physical, and it exists. So I looked at the professor. I said, "Professor, according to the principles of your objection, I'm not permitted to believe that you have a mind. Can't see it, taste it, touch it, smell it, hear it, or detect it with my scientific instrumentation." He didn't like that. I said, "Professor, is that reasonable?" And he said, "No." I said, "I agree. If I follow your carcass around, in your case, carcass, if I follow you around, I notice that you create order out of disorder, apply concepts to matter. It's obvious that your hardware, your carcass, is being driven by an intelligent mind. So when it comes to the existence of God, we must apply the same principle. What is more plausible? You must ask it that way. That information-packed, micro-miniaturized, self-reproducing, error-correcting super machines, which is what a cell is, arose by chance, not according to the principles of engineering, information science, and chemistry, or information-packed, self-reproducing, error-correcting super machines are the result of a mind, the result of a concept applied to matter. That's obviously the case.
Taken together with a reason why you to believe, desperate to believe, together with the fact that you don't need actually a God, in a sense amounts to an argument against the existence of God.
Well, I guess I don't see that. I mean, why doesn't that commit the genetic fallacy of trying to say that by explaining how a belief originates, you thereby show the belief to be false? Even if it were true that belief in the existence of God were a product of fear and anxiety and so forth, which I don't for a minute admit, but even if it were, that's simply a genetic fallacy to say that because that's the way the belief originates, that therefore the belief is false.
But that's only one half of the argument. I'm not saying that that alone is adequate, and I'm not saying that the fact that science can account for everything alone is also adequate. But taken together, the fact that science is omnipotent, and the fact that I can understand why people like you desperately want to believe in God, that is an argument against it.
But two fallacious arguments put together don't make a single argument, right? But do you deny that science can overcome everything? Yes, I do deny that science. So what can't it come? Well, had you brought that up in the debate, I've had a number of examples that I was going to give. I think there are a good number of things that cannot be scientifically proven, but that we're all rational to accept. Let me list 5. Logical and mathematical truths cannot be proven by science. Science presupposes logic and math, so that to try to prove them by science would be arguing in a circle. Metaphysical truths, like there are other minds other than my own, or that the external world is real, or that the past was not created 5 minutes ago with an appearance of age, are rational beliefs that cannot be scientifically proven. Ethical beliefs about statements of value are not accessible by the scientific method. You can't show by science whether the Nazi scientists in the camps did anything evil as opposed to the scientists in Western democracies. Aesthetic judgments, number 4, cannot be accessed by the scientific method because the beautiful, like the good, cannot be scientifically proven. And finally, most remarkably, would be science itself. Science cannot be justified by the scientific method. Science is permeated with unprovable assumptions. For example, in the special theory of relativity, the whole theory hinges on the assumption that the speed of light is constant in a one-way direction between any 2 points A and B. But that strictly cannot be proven. We simply have to assume that in order to hold the theory. So none of these beliefs can be scientifically proven, and yet they are accepted by all of them.
I love it.
Wouldn't that be good to be taught in school?
You sure would.
To just think through the way you think, right? Okay, so von Neumann machines, we just talked about that, having a mind, being able, it's only a mind with information that can create something like a human being. Here he is. The alternative we offer to Darwinian theory is strictly scientific in that it recognizes a vital fact, the necessity of information. The whole theory of Darwinian evolution leaves out any need for information, that it's a random, unguided process. And we're just demonstrating you can't get higher complexity without information. I love what he says here. You realize that the angels are being taught? The Bible teaches us we are living lessons that God uses to demonstrate his divine wisdom to the angelic beings as he works in us. Isn't that cool? All right, so how do you know intelligent design? He's got to look like, Do you know the angels didn't know what was going to happen to Jesus Christ? If you read in Hebrews, other places in the New Testament, they are literally watching the events unfold, right? They had no idea that Satan was actually going to crush himself. That by killing the Son of God would make Satan impotent. Isn't that incredible? They didn't realize that a person could enter into eternal life regardless of how bad they were on earth. It's incredible as you look through the Bible over and over again. We're amazed at the fact that God is laying out what he called a mystery from the Old Testament to the New. And then you know what the mystery was? Colossians 1:27. That Christ is in you. That what happened on the cross was then vindicated with the resurrection. And what Jesus said in John 11, when he said, I am the resurrection and the life, he was talking about the fact that you're only resurrected because he is resurrected. And by his resurrection, we now live again. This is crazy. If you just think of the concept. The angels didn't get this. Resurrection is not an event. I'm like, oh gosh, when I die, God's going to resurrect me. I already am. I'm a living resurrection. When the people are looking at me weird. When we pick John 10:10 as the motto of our church, right? I have come that they may have
Life,
and may have it what?
abundantly.
All right, how on earth are you going to have abundant life if you're not resurrected? Why do we do baptisms? All right, what's happening? What is this? What does baptism signify?
Death.
We're raised to a new life, right? When Paul,
It's also obedience.
huh?
It's also obedience.
Well, why do we obey though? Faith. By trusting in God, it leads us towards obedience. It doesn't mean we're always obedient, but it's because we cling to Him. So when we talk about in Galatians, the fruit of the Spirit, Him living in us, right? He talks about it all the time. I've been crucified with Christ. How on earth could I be crucified? I wasn't on the cross. How was I crucified with Christ?
Spiritual baptism.
I willingly went to death, right? It's not now, it's no longer I who live. So somehow by being crucified, now I live. What? Just think about it. And he explains what that means. It's not I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I live now in the flesh, I live by faith. So what's happening is this whole thing in the Bible that talks about the old man and the new man. The new man is resurrected because the old man is put to death. The old man was put to death not because I hung on the cross, because he did. So in order for the old man to be put to death, I have to align with the one who put the old man to death.
Yep.
I have to cling to him, and then his righteous achievement on the cross is credited to me. I didn't do it. This is what God talks about with imputation, when he imputes the righteousness of Christ to me. It's because when I cling to him, Jesus is like a surgeon. We've talked about this before. He will always respond to someone in need. Always. He doesn't say, well, wait a minute, you got to stop drinking. Or no, you're having sex with your girlfriend. Until you give that up, I'm not available to you. He goes, no. You just cry out to me. Just cry out to me. It's awesome. This is what we're talking about here. All right, how do you know intelligent design when you see it? You know, it's amazing how intuitive it is. I showed this once before, where when we look at this, everybody knows if they look at a rock, pretty simple. A rock's a rock, right? And you look at a pile of rocks. Well, they don't really think right away that somebody put the pile together. It could have been just naturally happened somehow. This starts getting interesting, right? You look at that. Does anybody think that could have happened by itself? Looks a little complex, like something was involved. Now I look at this. Now look at that, and now I've got order brought in with a specific reason for doing it, right? So usually at this point I'm saying there's some kind of control going on here. There's a path I'm supposed to follow. I think somebody was behind this. See, we all know this. Then you look at this, right? And you look at this one and you say to yourself, okay, this one's communicating information. This one, I'm not sure what the message is. There's a path. I don't know where it leads. I don't know why. I don't know why they use granite blocks instead of something else, but there's order. This one's telling me something. I have information very specific. This is now something added. I believe, for me, from this point, I start thinking somebody's involved. I know on that one. So when I'm looking for information, what I'm looking for to know there's design is I'm looking for, it's very improbable it could have happened by natural causes. The probability of that is almost zero. It's very complex, it's very orderly, and it's telling me something. You guys with me?
Mm-hmm.
You guys okay? So, how we test inside, this is literally what I do for my job. If it's naturally occurring, it probably could happen. It can be complex sometimes, but it's unguided. If it's designed, it's really, really improbable. It's very ordered, and it's informative. See the difference? And most of us know it. But here's an argument you'll get all the time. What about snowflakes? Oh, those are pretty awesome looking, aren't they? Okay, with a snowflake, it is a repeating pattern. It doesn't require a plan. This is a pattern that happens just from wind and rain and, gravity and time. So you don't really get information there. You look at it and you see the complexity, but you don't see any information. In 1967, SETI scientists thought they discovered intelligent life. They found radio signals that formed a pattern, and it was a very precise pattern. But when they analyzed the signal, it was a pulsar. There was a rotating star that mimics a beacon. It wasn't language. So they got this repeating pattern, very specific, and they said, whoa, almost sounds like Morse code. But as they looked into it, there was no definition behind the pattern, and they found a pulsar. It was a star doing it. Okay? So, how do you know if a system or a message has high or low information? How do you know? Well, how many instructions are needed to show how to do it? For example, low information. There's a chance, years and years go by, monkeys on a typewriter could type cat. You could get random combinations of small, simple words. But you're never going to get a novel, you're never going to get an automobile, you're never going to get DNA, right? You've got complex, information-laden systems that describe how to do something or assemble something. That's never going to happen in a random, unguided process. You with me? You guys okay? So don't let them hit you with a snowflake argument. Random patterns are fine, and they can happen over and over again, and you can get snowflakes and crystals. You'll never get a novel, or a bicycle, or even a pair of glasses, or a cell phone. So, well, don't scientists think there's intelligent life in the universe? Don't they think that way? They're searching still. In 1967, in SETI, it began in 1960 with Frank Drake, Cornell University professor, who set up a whole process, government funded, to try to find intelligent life. Today, we still have the Allen Radio Telescope with a staff of about 130 scientists that gets funded privately. It's no longer a government function, thank goodness. We're not spending my money. $2.5 million operating budget. And what they say they're looking for to prove intelligence is just like that movie Contact with Jodie Foster. They're looking for signals. So, they're good, they're happy if they can find a repeating signal that they found intelligence. What happened with the need for information? So they're not concerned with information. If you see on the news they find something, it will be like a pulsar, but it won't be information telling us anything. So, we've been doing this now for almost 60 years. How's it going? These SETI telescopes, these radar systems cover a vast portion of the universe.
It's got to be billions of years.
Right. And so they haven't been able to find anything after all this time. Now, is there any wisdom literature out there that tells us that there is a supreme being who is the creator of life in the universe? Is there any place we can look besides a bunch of scientists to try to find the source of the beginning of the universe? The smartest book ever written tells us, over and over again, Isaiah 45:12, I made the earth, I created man on it, it was me, my hand stretched out the heavens, and I've commanded them. Can anything be more straightforward than that? Hey, everybody, it was me. Me. Remember now, I'm a mind. I'm not a person walking around. I'm not Bill Gates running Microsoft. I'm God. I'm a mind. And you know what? Because it's hard for you to deal with that, I became a person, and I came and showed myself to you. This is what God's saying. Okay. Let's take a look at another example. This comes from Johns Hopkins University. Dr. Francis Collins wrote a great book recently. He's the founder of the Genome, the Human Genome Project. He became a Christian. He was an atheist. He became a Christian really from the argument for morality. not so much from scientific means, but from the fact that he realized objective morality exists, and if it exists, it can only come from a source outside of morality who could impose upon us good versus bad, because you aren't capable of doing it yourself since you're part of the problem. So it has to come from someone intrinsically good enough who could actually show us. So here's what he did. He showed this picture at Johns Hopkins University. He had an auditorium packed with students. And he shows this picture and he says, okay, this is a stained glass rose window in the York Minster Cathedral. He said, now, would anybody say this was a random event, unguided, that created this, or would you think an intelligent agent made this for a purpose? Pretty simple, right? Just by looking at it, you wouldn't think this happened on its own. Then he shows a picture of the DNA helix, a cross-sectional view. And he says, why wouldn't you believe this was also designed by someone? Jerry Coyne, one of the leading evolutionists in his book, Why Evolution is True, this is now what's happening with the secular world in our universities. They're trying to combat the reality of you can see design everywhere. And here's what he said. If anything is true about nature, it's that plants and animals seem intricately and almost perfectly designed. So here you have, just like we talked about in that previous video, you know, everything looks like it came from life, but you know, it didn't. You know, it's aliens, right? So here you have the same thing. Everything looks to anyone who's thinking that it's designed, but the reality is, I'll tell you the truth, it's not. So you're being told what to think instead of how to think. Instead of looking at outer space, you know what we should do is just turn those SETI telescopes on our brains and just kind of look at in our bodies and look at us. Okay, DNA. DNA is incredible. It's actually a ladder that's twisted into a double helix. You look inside the chromosomes, which contain the genes, which inside of there contains nucleotides and contains the structure all wound up called DNA. It has 4 rungs on the ladder, and adenine will always bind with thymine. You'll never get adenine with cytosine. It's specific. These two will always connect. Guanine and cytosine will connect. You'll never see them crossing over. But the sequence changes depending on the organism. Okay? So the rungs, the way they're set up, they'll have a certain pattern if the information is to make a human being, a different pattern for an earthworm, a different arrangement for a bird, a falcon versus a robin. They're all going to be mixed together. And the number of combinations here are billions and billions. That's how complex it is. So for example, quick little quiz. I have one die I roll, right? It has 6 sides. What are the possible numbers I can get when I roll it? How many different arrangements can I get? 6. I roll the die, I'm only going to get one of these, right? The way it works is, in statistics, you take the number of possible combinations times the number of samples you have as an exponent. Okay? If I have 2 die and I'm rolling them, I can get how many different possible combinations? 36. If I have 10 die, it's harder now, doesn't it? I'm rolling them. I calculated this for you guys because in my head I can't do it either. If I have 10 die, I can get 60,466,176 possible combinations. This is how statistics works. In lesson 6.2, we go through the probability of DNA being formed because of how it works by chance. This equates to roughly, I think I came out with 1 chance in 10 to the 7th or 8th power. So that's like saying 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we'll just put another one on. So if I were to roll one die 100 million times, then this would be the chance it would come up on one number, right? So this is like, or better, it's better for this, I'm sorry. If I have 10 die, what's the chance all 10 come up 6? So I throw 10 down, and all 10 land with 6 up. You have 1 chance in 100 million. This ought to help you for why the lottery builds up so much for money. You know what the chance is that the arrangement of guanine to cytosine, adenine to thymine, the arrangement gives you a frog versus a human versus a robin. The fact that any of it could come together to give life. Think of this now. 1 times 10 to the 600. 600. All right, I laid out in the book 600 zeros, so you can see what it looks like. Okay? You get to 1 times 10 to the 60th power, statisticians say it's impossible, it'll never happen. DNA by itself, the way it's arranged, says has to be a mind. It's not possible randomly. DNA is extremely ordered and complex. There's 3 million pairings. So these bases, the way they tie together, you can have 3 million different possible arrangements across this structure. Information content. It's literally your blueprint. So literally, it's a code that determines everything about who you are. Why do you think they sell the kits now? DNA, 23andMe, you got 23 chromosomes? Because you can actually, there's a blueprint about who you are. You prick your finger, you give it, and they come back and they can tell you everything about yourself. How could that sell if it didn't work? Which means right there, it's not unguided. It's like they're advertising for God, and they don't even know it, right? So Bill Gates said it's like a computer program, but it's way more advanced, okay? It's crazy. So is there any wisdom literature that tells me the source of this staggering amount of information is created, it comes from a mind? Again, over and over again in the Bible, your hands have fashioned me. That word means framed me in order. He's God, it's He who made us. That word in the Hebrew means brought us forth and not us. He literally makes you. He makes you who you are. He actually sits there and designs that He wants you to have brown eyes. He wants you to be right-handed. He wants you to have these different things you have. So what we're going to end up doing, I can tell, is we're running out of time. We're going to come back and finish, because me and my big mouth, I keep talking, but we're going to come back and finish. But I want to end with a short little video on kinesin, because I'm going to jump ahead and show you, and then we'll look at it again next week. This is like my favorite little video that talks about how the cells work in combination with your DNA, okay? So watch this, man. This will blow your mind. And then we'll go through it in detail next
Cells are full of specialized components that perform functions vital to their existence. But how do these components get to the right locations inside the cell to perform their functions? For larger components, a transportation system is needed. Meet the kinesin. Masterpieces of microengineering, kinesins are miniature motorized machines that carry cargo from one part of the cell to another, walking along self-assembling highways called microtubules. Known as the workhorses of the cell, kinesins have 2 feet, or globular heads, that literally walk 1 foot over another along the microtubule, pulling their cargo to its destination. Each foot possesses 2 special locations, called binding sites, that interact with other molecules. One site attaches to the microtubule, and the other binds with ATP, the energy molecule of the cell. When one foot binds with ATP and uses its energy, the foot flips over, resulting in the walking motion. Each foot has a short neck, which is connected to a strand of a long coiled stalk. At the end of the stalk is a fan-shaped tail, which holds tightly to the cargo being transported. Kinesins can carry cargo that are many times their own size. Sometimes a kinesin is in danger of getting stuck on the microtubule highway because of blockages caused by other cellular components. To get around such obstacles, multiple motor proteins may be used to carry a single piece of cargo, together providing enough force to break free. Kinesins typically walk away from the center of the cell and toward the cell's periphery. The kinesin's 2 feet work together efficiently, with 1 foot holding fast to the microtubule, while the other releases itself and takes a step forward. This coordinated stepwise movement allows kinesin motors to walk as many as 100 steps per second, moving about 8 nanometers with each step. When not carrying cargo, kinesins can shift to energy-saving mode to conserve fuel until their next job. The kinesin plays a vital role in many cellular processes, not just transporting materials, but also aiding cell replication. The walking kinesin molecular machine, another example of intelligent design.
Is that not the coolest thing?
That's so cool.
Here's like 50 examples of this. When we think about somebody trying to tell us that we're a random, unguided result of chance, and your life has no meaning because we're just lucky we're here, the whole biochemistry of who we are screams, somebody made us. And God tells us over and over again in the Bible. So next thing what we'll do is, I'll go back a few slides, we'll finish this, then we're going to get into the human soul and look at the immaterial part of ourselves, okay?